So do you remember, let's see, how long ago was it? Was it a week or 2 weeks? No, it was 2 weeks ago. We went to that event.
Uh-huh.
All right. So at that event, I wore this shirt, and I can't tell you the number of people that commented on my shirt and told me how amazing it was that I would wear a shirt like this. And yet they don't.
Well, maybe they do now.
Maybe they do. But what was astounding to me is all of them were like, "Whoa, that shirt's amazing. Wow, you really disrupted the room. Everybody's noticing that shirt. That's so awesome." And compliment after compliment, but they wouldn't also wear those shirts. And I think that's interesting because I think it's an envy thing, not necessarily envy. Maybe that's the wrong word, but it's like there's this emotion where they want to be able to wear a shirt like this, but there's something holding them back.
So yeah, what would be holding them back? Would it be that they've never truly asked the question? It's like,
I don't know. I almost wonder if it's they're embarrassed. So well, actually, no, there's some that I think would be embarrassed. I was at another networking event, pulled the same stunt, wore this shirt. One lady was like, "That is the greatest shirt I've ever seen. I need one like that." And then her brother was there with her, and her brother's like, and I was like, "Hey, you want one too?" And he's like, "I would never wear that shirt." And for him, the shirt was like, "Don't give me that attention. I would never want that attention." He's wearing a very dark shirt, sitting in the corner, hiding from everybody. And for this lady, she wanted to wear one, didn't know where to get one. He didn't want to wear one because he didn't want the attention. So I think there's probably a few different categories that people fall in, both for wearing the shirt, but also for goals in life and business. And that's where I was going with this is a lot of those people they'll want what I've achieved and they don't know how to get it, or they're embarrassed to have it, or they're scared, or there's some other emotion that's holding them back, or they'll like the guy in the corner, he's telling himself he doesn't want the shirt. He would love to have all the benefits that came from the shirt, but he was scared of having the attention turned towards him in that setting. And I think people do the same thing with business. We like at that same event we were at, how many people do you think we talked to where their businesses maybe seemed like they were going good on the outside and it was a dumpster fire for the business owner?
well, they were all, I mean, going good from the outside. It depends on how you want to define that. I like to define that as business owner has more freedom, not less. And if the dumpster fire is the business owner has less freedom than when they started the business, then they're all dumpster fires.
Yeah, but I think from perspective, they're looking and they're like, "Oh, Bob's successful. He's flying to these conferences, he's making money, he's doing all these things. He's always on social media showcasing how crazy life is with blah blah blah." And yet when you got past all the facade to what really matters to people, having actual money in their pocket at the end of the month and having more time, not less, a lot of them were that dumpster fire.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like what do we define as that? And if we define it that way, then I think almost all of them, even though they were at the conference, they were looking for that ticket to get them to a new level of freedom.
Yeah.
And if the topic of that conference was related to what's actually constraining their business, then they can absolutely get the ticket there. But if the topic of the conference had nothing to do with the aspect of their business that's constraining them, then they're going to, if they follow it, they're going to strengthen a link in their system that is not the weak link, and it completely ignore their actual real bottleneck.
And what's amazing to me is so many don't even know what all of the different systems are that they need to worry about. Like we're talking to some people and they had blinders on to everything except for the one thing, and the one thing's not their problem. They're so focused on that one thing that they've always worked on because they're good at that one thing, and they just keep leveling up on that one thing. And they were totally oblivious to all these other all these other systems in the business that need to be healthy too. And so then they're just running like crazy. Oh shoot, what was well, probably better not say their name without permission, but that first day we had that great conversation. They were so willing to learn, that husband and wife, so willing to
Uh,
learn, so willing to absorb all the information. And I think in probably that 30-minute conversation, several shifts happened from beliefs they had. They're like, we're going to have to spend thousands of dollars, store all kinds of inventory. We're going to have to have a system figured out how we can ship all this stuff out and all the logistics.
and
And
we
we
can only
came
sell for 2 months out of the year.
right. Yeah, exactly. And our product will go stale if we don't
Yep.
sell it within a certain time frame. And what was that? A 5-minute conversation. We blew up all of those false beliefs around their business, and they're going to be able to sell faster, cheaper. Inventory won't expire. They don't have to worry about logistics, and their profit margins will probably actually be as good or better than what they were expecting with all the headache of them doing it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. I go back to that. Like, what were they good at? Like, what was their key that they were stuck in the cycle? I mean, because again, what was at the conference would certainly help them in the place they were at in their business, but it still wasn't their constraint.
Exactly.
And but yeah, like the limiting beliefs that we all have on ourselves, like I was able to catch some of my own recently, where I realized that I've been playing far too small.
Mm.
And
What does that mean, playing far too small?
well, it means that I was looking for incremental improvements, and incremental improvements. I think in my mind, now that I've stepped back a little bit to recognize it, all that does is make the bars of the cage thicker.
Interesting.
Whereas if I look for something that's that exponential, something much bigger, it forces me to change the way I'm doing things, and that's what gives me the filter to know what to say no to, what to say yes to. That's what lets me do things in a completely new way that will help me achieve a new level of time and money freedom that um that is still on my path. I mean, to say like I'll want it someday and I'm going to take these incremental steps to get there. I mean, there's definitely a place for incremental steps, but when you're looking at the vision that you want for your life, there is no room for I don't think there's room for that. Not unless you're happy, not unless you decide you're happy where you're at.
Interesting.
And there's bigger things that I want to do. There's more people I want to help.
So is there ever a place where someone should be working incremental steps?
I'm sure there is. I mean, like when it comes to developing your business, I mean, we have a step-by-step framework that you go through.
Yep.
But the thing is, even though it's working step by step, it's not incremental.
Okay.
Because you get a multiplicative effect as opposed to an additive effect when you have all of the functions aligned to the correct standard. It's what unlocks a whole new level of freedom, both time and money.
So even though they are working step by step in little phases, the results start multiplying and stacking, and it's no longer 1 + 1. It's going to start getting bigger and bigger and bigger as they level up.
And I think it's that way. Like, if you're working towards your goals, it is incremental. But if you have the correct filter, you can decide which paths you're not willing to take because you have a better understanding of what the real costs are.
Yeah, I think what you were saying earlier was your vision was incremental on
Mm-hmm.
where you wanted to go. And you're saying instead of an incremental vision, you need to have a transformative vision.
Yes.
And maybe it's still baby steps that get you there. But if all you're trying to do is baby steps towards an incremental vision, it's not going to substantially change anything in your life. Bob Proctor was talking about that. He was at a conference and he was having people set goals. And I think it was some sort of a nice car, maybe like a Lincoln or something at the time. and someone was like, I want to buy a Lincoln, a brand new Lincoln. And he said, okay, great. What car do you drive now? A Lincoln. He's like, that's not a goal. You've already done that. You're just saying you want to do it again. That's just you being you. That's not going to transform anything. That's not going to help you achieve anything. You already know everything it takes to buy a Lincoln because you've already done it once. And he was trying to get this point across. Why don't you level up to something you've never done before in your vision and in your goals? And then you're going to actually experience that transformative effect.
Yes. Yeah. And this is probably the dichotomy that I've been stuck in. I see other people get stuck in is your vision, like for where you want to go, what you want to achieve needs to be transformative. But the path to get there is always a step-by-step process.
Yes.
Like it rarely happens with massive leaps.
Yep.
And even if we think we saw a massive leap that somebody else took, if we really, really dive into it and could see from their experience, it likely wasn't a massive leap. It was very likely incremental steps. But the thing is, I don't think the speed that we sometimes see is whether or not it's incremental steps. I think it's how fast they take those steps.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's so many times you think, well, I took that step this week. Now I'm good. Now I can take the rest of the week off. I can relax, and I'll take another one next week. Whereas the people who are really driving, they can take multiple steps a day. And so to us who are taking one step a week, seeing somebody who's going much faster, it might look like a leap. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, it's not. They're just taking each incremental step that much quicker than we are. They're iterating faster. They're learning what doesn't work sooner than we are, and achieving their transformative vision in a time frame that we're like, that's magic, it's luck, it's whatever other thing we want to ascribe to it, which is completely separate from the path that they actually took to get there.
Right. And what, going back to that conference again, there was another conversation of somebody who, again, they knew how to do certain things in their business and they leveled up. And I don't know if you'll remember this conversation. It was one of the last ones we had as it was ending, but he'd gone into professional services, then moved into logistics, and then moved back into professional services. And when we pushed him on, why did you move from professional services to logistics? He's like, I felt trapped. And so then he moved completely to a different industry so he wouldn't be trapped. And then he moved back to professional services because he got that same feeling of being trapped in the logistics company. And I'm like, maybe it's not the industry you're in. Maybe some of these stages didn't get developed. And so they keep coming back to haunt the business owner over and over. And that's what the feeling of trappedness it really is for the business owner, is they don't know how to build anything but a cage. So they get these amazing businesses built. And I'd imagine 90% of the people at that conference would have gladly taken the cage that he had built for himself any of those times and be like, yes, I'll gladly have that business because it was amazing. But for him, all he could feel was the cage.
Well, because he knew there was something more. Like he knew there was another level of freedom, but he didn't know how to, as for the video game analogy, he didn't know how to beat that boss. Like He was stuck at the level that he was at and didn't know how to get to the next one. Bowser was keeping him down.
Absolutely. And what astounded me was, rather than figuring out what was making that person stuck in that cage that they couldn't break through, he would just turn around, drop everything, and walk off. That's incredible.
Well, but it's not that's not uncommon.
It's not, but could you imagine having so much and being willing to just drop it all, turn your back on it and walk off and start something from scratch again because you know how to do that?
And you just play the first part of that loop because it's comfortable. You feel like you're making progress.
It would be like playing the guitar and getting to a certain level and then being like, you know what? I'm just going to go back to the beginning again. And this time, instead of the guitar, I'm going to learn the violin at the beginner level. And you get up a few, and then, oh no, I'm setting that back down. I'm going to go back and pick up another. And you just keep learning that same beginning chords on everything, but you never level up beyond that.
Yeah, well, Yeah, I mean, you figure out you do it once, you're not sure how you did it, and then you just want to repeat what you know instead of setting a new transformative vision.
That's why I think what we have is so incredible, because it literally takes anyone who doesn't understand business and gives them a step by step by step process. They don't have to know anything. All they have to do is the steps that the system tells them to, and they will break through the cage that guy, I bet he'd have paid massive sums of money to have someone break him through and not drop his business in the toilet. But no one was there to guide him. And now with our system, literally anyone can walk through those steps and do it.
Yeah, well, because it brings awareness to all of the aspects that are commonly ignored, that are critical to have linked together so that you can level up to a new level of time and money freedom.
Yep.
And without, because it doesn't work. It's like building a house but skipping the nails. It's, you can stack the boards, but they're not gonna stay stacked.
Yep.
You need to have every piece, otherwise it doesn't work. At least not for very long, and not for very high.
Yeah. And so if if you could go back to that conference, what would you tell that guy in today's, like, what would you share? Like, how would you propose to him that he doesn't have to drop his business and move to a new one?
I would probably actually share the model, because I had printouts of it, and I didn't show it to everybody, but the people I showed it to seemed to get it. So
Right.
I'd probably show them the model and have him tell me within the model what he was missing.
Oh, right. Yeah, I bet within 30 seconds it would have been clear if he'd seen the visual.
Yeah. And then it would have been his idea, because he would have figured out which one he was missing, and then he could have gone and actually done something about it.
Right. 100%. Huh. Amazing. We're gonna have to just start carrying that visual with us everywhere we go, so we can start helping people all the time, because it doesn't matter where we go. It seems like I'm finding people. I'm like, oh man, I bet they need help.
Yeah, well, yeah, any business owners, and but again, I think all of it does start with that. It does start with that vision. Like, you have to want to achieve something more than where you're at. Otherwise, walking the path is pointless.
The other one that blows
Or at
me
least
away
it feels that way.
is the people who don't want, like, they want to be miserable where they're at. I remember started talking with, and everything that we started to chat, oh yeah, I already know that. There was nothing we could talk to her about that she couldn't already know. And yet her business was nowhere. She hadn't gone anywhere. She was at zero.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other thing. Like, some people they don't, as you say, they don't want to be helped. We get comfortable in those feeling a particular way, and so we continue to seek out those emotions that we're comfortable with. Whereas the real secret is learning to become comfortable with discomfort. Like, we have to, like, if we want to transform, if we want to have a bigger impact than we do today, then we have to get comfortable with the discomfort. Like, that has to become the normal feeling that we seek. And that's,
what do you mean when you say the discomfort?
Well, it's, for example, you gave the example with your banana shirt, the guy who's like, I could never wear that. Well, what if he saw that was actually his path to getting the attention he needed, so that he could actually help the people that he is capable of helping? But because of some other, because he's unwilling to feel that discomfort of performing, I mean, you said a stunt, but for you, I don't think it is a stunt. I think other people could see it as a stunt, but for you, it's just you. And he had these limiting beliefs about himself that he wasn't willing to get past and step into a little bit of discomfort, even in his imagination. to be able to see how changing the way he appears, even a small thing like changing, like wearing a funny shirt, could get him a new unlock. Like even to mentally imagine that was something that he wasn't even willing to step into, let alone doing it in actuality.
Right.
And we have to be willing to explore the discomfort and test and experiment with things that might not work. Although, like, and that's like, and every entrepreneur, like the excitement that they have at the beginning of their journey, it overrides their fear of judgment. It overrides their fear of things not working out. It overrides all of those emotions that later stop us from progressing once we get to a particular point. And if we can't keep some of that emotion going, then where we are overriding our fear of failure, or understanding that failure isn't actually failure. Like, I don't know if it, like, I think it comes from multiple ways. It can come from an emotion. It can come from knowledge. It can come from a variety of different places, but we have to, in some way, shape, or form, have to get past all of the limiting things that keep us stuck in comfort. Because comfort, for an entrepreneur, comfort is the crisis.
Comfort is the crisis.
Like it, because that's what keeps you. If you get like, you can have a very comfortable cage.
Right.
It's still a cage.
Yep.
And the crisis that's created is that you decide that you start to see that cage as your entire world. And then the impact that you could be having, the joy that you could be having, the time and money freedom that you could be having, you just give up on it.
Right.
And for you, or if this is a person that decides this cage is the entire world, they settle for mediocrity. And I use that and that's a relative term, because for them, they could achieve more if they were willing to continue how they started, with the discomfort, without worrying about failing, being willing to continue learning and continue walking that journey. But walking that journey, it's uphill and it's challenging and it's hard. And there are lots of people who say you shouldn't do it.
Yeah. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I think it's in that book. It's one of Robert Kiyosaki's books. He talks about the town that awarded 2 contracts as a story. And the contracts were to supply water to the town. And the first guy gets the contract. He goes out, gets 2 buckets, gets a pole, runs to the spring, fills his buckets, comes running back, starts giving water to people, selling. He's making money. He's so excited. The other guy just sits down and starts thinking. And he starts organizing people around him. And the guy with the buckets is like, what a fool, right? I'm making all this money. He's not doing anything. Little while later, this pipe shows up in town and people can just come and get the water from the pipe. And all of a sudden, the first guy who thought he was going to have this successful business, his business just literally dries up until he has almost no one. And he's got his son working for him, and his son doesn't want to work for him. And the whole business is collapsing on him because he got comfortable with this idea of, I'm just going to run this path multiple times a day, taking water to people, and didn't innovate. And a lot of people don't know how or where to innovate. And our system tells them, these are the steps, these are the places you innovate, and this is the order you innovate in. And that's, I think, one of the places people get stuck, to where they can't handle innovation. Just they don't know what to do, they don't know how to do it. They get, like that guy, scared of the ideas that are in his own head, or the emotions, like you were saying. And yet when we continually innovate and come up with innovative solutions, then comfort isn't an option, because we're constantly looking for what's the next problem so we can solve it.
Yeah, well, and that story from Robert Kiyosaki, it's a good example of building systems versus just running harder to make things happen. And for many of us, though, like, that's where we start. We start with we get a bucket and we fill it up with water, and we take it back and we sell the water, and that's okay. I think that's one of the things you need to realize, that especially with the system that we've seen it, and it's not, and it is our system, but it's based in real world, experiments, in real world observation, in real world, use cases. Like we may all start there with that bucket and running back and forth, but eventually, maybe we'll hire, as you said, we might hire a few people to run buckets for us. So yeah, well, more of the same. But then we get to the point where, now we work through enough of the steps that we're to a level like, all right, now we need to do this differently. And that's where a pipe comes in, for whatever our business might be.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have to wait for somebody else to do that. And we don't have to keep running that same route over and over again. We can learn to do things differently, but we can take steps to get there.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't have the money to build a pipeline, maybe buckets is the best that you can do. And once you have something, once you've proven demand, once you've proven a model, once you've proven that you got something there, then you look for ways to do it more effectively.
Yep.
But you have to go through those step by steps. Many times, money, and even if you have money, they still could have chosen to hire a whole bunch of people, and they could have decided instead of a pipe, they could have gotten, I don't know, like skateboards or something,
right?
Or a conveyor belt with buckets on it, or like there was all kinds of different things they could have done, but they still had to go through those steps of figuring out what's going to work. So even though money lets you go faster, it doesn't let you skip steps.
Exactly.
And I think that's something important for people to recognize with any of these systems. You still have to go through even the beginning steps. But money can make it faster. But if you don't have the money to do that, then start with what you've got and work step by step up, and you'll get there.
Yep. And I think that unless you've got anything else you want to share, I think we're just about out of time, and it's a great place to close it up for this week.
Sounds good.
All right.
See you later, bananas.
Yep.